Thank you for your concern and replies. The fact that I'm not alone and have your support means the world. I can't answer all the questions, but I will say this. Some of you are right. You suspected and anticipated some of what has happened. Unfortunately, not to the extent that any of us could have dreamed. I'm not sure what to make of the past couple days. Our journey took a day. I wasn't allowed outside throughout the trip, so I never really got my bearings. When we reached our destination, I finally understood where we were. The desert, dry air, an oppressive heat. It had to be Arizona. It's the closest site to one in Colorado. As I was led outside with Eldridge by guards in gray and red, I saw the large semis being unloaded across the tarmac in the distance. The facility the blocks were being moved into was enormous, but bland. It looked like those buildings you see every other semi docked, where they drop off and receive cargo. I saw noticeably less movement in the blocks as they were transported inside. The compound the facility was on was enormous. The walk to where they held me was somewhat long, so I tried to take it in as much as I could. To the west were two large buildings that appeared to be built for holding cargo. This included the one where the blocks were being stored. To the east was an industrial park. Parking lots, three-story buildings, medians with cacti and red stone. It looked remarkably ordinary. Cars littered the lots. I saw the logo for Axiom X on the walls of these buildings. To the north was desert, bleak and empty. The south was the same except for the black vein of road cutting through it. The whole compound was fenced in. The poles of the fence were thicker than your average fence pole, and they were topped with brass globes. I was taken to a large, flat, one-story building. Air conditioners chugged quietly in a line along the wall. Once inside, I realized these were living quarters. The guards stopped inside the doors, and I saw sweat beading their foreheads. I had to go through a security checkpoint where my phone and computer were taken. Eldridge beckoned to me to follow him down a series of hallways and showed me to room 250. It wasn't anything impressive. A single bed, a desk, sparse bathroom, and a dresser. No TV, but there was a stiff and scratchy armchair in the corner if I had the urge to sit back and read for a while. Could you explain to me what's going on? I dropped my bags and sat on the bed. I felt sticky with the sheen of sweat covering my skin. I hadn't changed my clothes since Friday. Eldridge made sure the door was closed and turned to me. You technically broke into a government quarantine, interacted closely with individuals inside the quarantine. This, he gestured to the room, is more than others would have gotten. I tried to contain my scoff. Is this because I made it out that night untouched? Is that what this is? Because if it is, you know why. My dad warned me in time somehow. There's nothing special about me other than I was lucky enough to get to a car in time. I realize that. But there are others that see potential in you. He paused for a moment. Back in the early 90s, there was a lack of congressional funding to the Ed, which resulted in a substantial amount of contractual work with Oxium. The technological advances Oxium made were leaps and bounds beyond what government scientists were producing. The committees involved in the Ed were happy to hear this. Over time, more control was given to the company, and by 1999, all 5 facilities were running with Oxium-created equipment and staffed largely by Oxium scientists and staff. Congress and the governmental side of the Ed still have a hand in things, but Oxium-backed congressmen and women have slowly begun to become more prominent in those committees. The operation of the Ed has slowly come more into the control of Oxium. The government is still extremely tight-lipped about everything, but I haven't heard of anyone's hackles rising because of this shift in the power dynamic. He stopped to rub his eyes. Maybe it was decided by the powers that be, but this is too much of a liability for the government to handle, or that it's not worth the time and money any longer. What I'm trying to tell you is that you're of great interest to Oxium now, regardless of what I report to them or the government. What happens next is largely out of my hands now. I felt hot, waxy fear drip down my back. I couldn't stop it from happening. A wash of self-pity came over me. I wondered how the hell this had all happened. I'd lost so much in such a short time. It would have been hard to describe, but I imagine it's similar to what people might feel when natural disasters strike. You lose your home, sometimes your families, your pets, your assets. everything. You're left with what you had on your back. Life experiences and intelligence may account for something, but the sheer emptiness of the loss of your physical life is beyond my ability to describe. Sitting in that dingy motel-like room drove it all home clearly to me. I had no home, and I felt as if I wasn't even regarded as a person any longer, but more a pawn in the overall scheme of things. As if I had some special abilities, some special immunity that they could tease out of me. I know the trope of the sinister corporation is tired, but what Eldridge described to me about the shift in control over the Ed really upset me. So I'm to sit here and wait on them until they're ready with whatever they have to test me or something? I didn't choose any of this. I was lucky enough that my father somehow came to me. Now, here I am, days later, waiting on the whims of people who know nothing about me except the truths I've told you, yet they don't want to believe what I've said. I can't stay here. You can't leave. He stood up straight. You can't leave the compound. They won't let you. Even if you did leave, the fence I saw you eyeing means protection. Being outside of it is dangerous. His phone buzzed. I have to go, he said suddenly. You'll be issued a laptop soon. I think you'll find a notebook and your pen in your bag. Don't stop recording and don't stop writing. He pulled a small bag from his back pocket. It was black nylon and pill-shaped, roughly the size of his palm. Eldridge placed it on the bureau. Your access card is on the outside porch. 2 of the scientists, Parsons and Chambry, have asked that you report to Facility 1 at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I advise you to make it a priority to get there. He unzipped the pouch and produced a contact lens case. Before you go, put these in your eyes. Noxium developed them. They allow you to see the manifestations. They react with the heat in your eyes and bend the light to such an extent that you can see where manifestations are at any given time. Don't keep them in too long, though. 2 hours max is pushing it. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're here. I never expected this turn of events. Maybe I did on some level. I could have kept you out of Glenwood when we saw you approaching. This story is just too important. Then why not write it yourself? You're using me to get this bullshit out in the open. I have trouble swallowing your supposed altruism when I'm the one living this and telling others about it. Eldridge's face grew red at that. I have to live with myself and my past. Bigger things are in motion at this point. My credibility is compromised by my association with this. Your voice is pure and untouched. So yes, I am using it. I'm not asking you to overlook that. Be disgusted with me. I'd welcome it. I'd be shocked if you weren't. Once you get there, you'll see the extent of things. He turned and left abruptly. I didn't look at the contacts or the access card. I laid on the bed and looked at the ceiling. My body and mind were tired. I wanted to shower, but felt too exhausted to move. After a few minutes, I fell asleep. In my dream, I was laying in bed, just as I was when I drifted off to sleep. The lights were off, and the silence was so complete my ears felt like they were ringing. There was a weight on my bed, other than my own. To my right, facing the wall, was a dark figure with its back towards me. It was still, but in the same position my dad was when I had found him in the bedroom at Glenwood. I didn't move, and I barely breathed. The figure started to slowly roll towards the tight space between the bed and the wall, and I knew a full rotation would reveal its face. Although I wanted to shut my eyes, I couldn't. It fell suddenly into the tight space. I didn't see its face. My dream self had no reaction. Then I saw 2 long-fingered hands, smoky and black, grip the edge of the bed and began to pull it towards the ground. My side of the bed tilted up as the hands pulled down. A head began to rise above the edge of the comforter. It was shorter than a human head and charcoal gray. It only had a mouth that was open and possibly wide. My body began to give into the gravity and slide down the bed. Suddenly the bed was the size of a parking lot, and I was the size of an ant. The open mouth was huge, an empty, gaping maw. I fell towards the mouth. As my body rolled over the hot, steaming gums, I jerked violently in my sleep. I woke up suddenly, and in a panic, crawling off the bed frantically. I backed up against the window. It was dark out, except for the lights illuminating the outside parking lot. I breathed heavily as I stared at the space between the bed and the wall. Eventually, I got the nerve to check the space, and there was nothing. I left the lights on the whole night while I wrote. I'm gonna stop here. I'll post more soon.